What is happening, everyone? Hope everybody is all good. Video today, right? This has been long overdue. Now, this is something I deal with a coach, or this is something What is up, everyone? Hope everybody is all good. Good video today, a long overdue video. We're talking about why you're struggling to get leaner, why you're struggling to drop body fat. If you hit a little bit of a plateau, you just can't seem to get past a certain sticking point every time you do it. This is something I deal with weekly with my client base. Again, for years, this always crops up. And the bottleneck for people on why they struggle to drop body fat or why they hit a bit of a plateau, it's in this. It's all governed in this every single time, right? So I want to make this as an educational video for you. If you're in a situation where you're just struggling to get leaner, you're at a certain point and you just can't seem to break through a plateau or whatever, your issue is in this. I'm trying to help you out, right? I'm going to get straight to it. So everything is all tied in to number one, right? Your calorie deficit is off. Simple as. If you're in a consistent calorie deficit, you will drop body fat. You can't outsmart the laws of thermodynamics. You just cannot, right? If you're eating in a legit calorie deficit, you will drop body fat. Now, what tends to happen, people think they're in a calorie deficit, but they're not. The tracking is off completely, and that can be multiple different things, from food sources that they're tracking or their expenditure and steps, which I'll get into. But for the most part, it tends to be, someone thinks that they're eating 2,000 calories, and in reality, they're probably eating 2,700. So the 700, 600 calories over what they think is what they're actually eating. So then that puts them at maintenance and not in a calorie deficit. That's the number one reason that I see for people not dropping body fat, is that they're underestimating calories. Now, the things to look out for, it all comes down to poor tracking and again, not weighing absolutely every gram of food that you eat. And number one is letting oils sneak in when you're cooking things. So if you're cooking a piece of meat, a chicken breast, a steak, whatever it might be, if you're putting butter in the pan or you're cooking that in oil and you're not tracking that, that is the number one culprit of untracked calories for me. I've seen it with countless people. It's oils and food. That can account, if every meal, let's say you're having some meat 2-3 times a day, whatever it might be, every time you put a piece of meat in the pan, if you're cooking that with 30-40 grams of butter or oil, you can see how these calories count up, or they tot up. And over the course of a week, if these are all going untracked, you can see. That's the first one, is oils. The second one is fattier cuts of meat. Again, I had this recently with a good client as well. Let's say, for example, you buy ground beef, or your meat is from a farm or a butcher, and you don't know exactly the fat content of that. You think it's 95% lean ground beef, and you track it as that, but it's probably maybe closer to 85-15% fat. So for every 200 gram of ground beef that you're eating, you're accounting for X amount of fat, 10 gram of fat, but in reality it's 30 gram of fat. So your calories, it's just poorly tracked. These are big common things that I see all the time. So that's number one. Your calorie deficit is off. Oils and fattier cuts of meat and food is just not being tracked properly, right? That's the first thing. And that's the hard pill for a lot of people to swallow. People don't like being told you're tracking calories wrong, because they will come back and go, oh, no, I'm doing everything right. Well, you're obviously not. You see what I mean? You can't out-science it. You can't outsmart it. That's number one. Number two, your energy expenditure is low or it's off. Now, what we like to do, we have to find a balance between, we create a deficit from, again, we're eating less food. But the other part of creating a decent deficit is having our energy expenditure up with step counts. Again, that's the big thing about 10,000 steps a day, or 10, 12, 15K steps. The more your steps are, the more your energy expenditure is up and more calories that you're going to burn, right? So you have steps as a tool and also cardio. So let's say someone is going along the deficit, they've been dieting for a couple of weeks, everything's been going well, and then all of a sudden they've hit a wall. For the first 4 weeks, they were very active. They were hitting 12,000 steps a day. The food was on point. Everything was just going great. All of a sudden, you hit a wall. But then if you looked at the step count over the course of that week where everything hit a wall, they might have went from 12,000 steps, and it might have halved. It might have come down to 5 or 6,000, and they might not have noticed it. So all of a sudden, you've dropped across the week, you've dropped off 30 to 35,000 steps. So your energy expenditure is down, so your deficit has went from being here, and it's all the way back down here now because your steps, your expenditure or your cardio was dropped off. So that's another one that sneaks in for people. That's why very keeping a close eye on your step count, vitally important, making that one of your big variables and metrics that you always track, right? So that's number 2. Now let's get into some of the fun stuff. Again, this is the people, or this is the stuff that people don't like to hear, but it's the truth, right? 3, eating out too often at restaurants. Now, I am not telling anyone you can never eat out at a restaurant, because I don't think that's not a way to live life, of course. But if you're serious about getting as lean as you can, and you're in a legitimate fat loss phase, you're gonna have to be very mindful about how often you are eating out at these restaurants, because you'd open up a can of worms. If you go to a restaurant, you can order something off the menu, and the variance in those calories every time you get that exact same meal, you could go to that restaurant 5 times, that'll be different every time. Who cooks it? Who prepares it? How much oil do they put on it? You see where I'm going with that? It's just you open up a can of worms, and then it leads to this. Your calorie deficit becomes off. If you're eating out twice, 3 times a week at a restaurant, I have this with a lot of busy fellas who are traveling for work, and they're always eating out at restaurants, and then the body weight is it's plateauing. You need to organise your food. You need to have more meal preps. You need to stop eating out at these restaurants as often, because ultimately it just leads to that. And that's the reality of it. I'm not saying you can't go out to restaurants. You can, but you need to make it as less frequent as possible, and not doing it 2, 3, 4 times a week, because you're going to make it hard for yourself. That's another big Achilles heel for a lot of people. So number 4, and this ties in again with eating out at restaurants, weekends are poorly managed. How many times do I see this as a coach? Someone Monday to Friday is spot on. Saturday night rolls around, all hell breaks loose. They went from eating 2,000 calories to being spot on in the deficit. Bang, they're up to 4,000 calories on a Saturday night. They're being out, they've had a couple of drinks, and they've had a fucking doner kebab or a pizza or whatever it might be. Bang, they've just fucked up the deficit that they've just created from Monday to Friday. They blew it out the water with Saturday, and then they spend Sunday trying to recover, and they eat shit again, and it might be 3,000-4,000 calories again. So you have 5 days where someone is doing what's needed, and then they just bollocks everything up at the weekend. And that all comes into eating out at restaurants as well. So you can see how people just get in this constant trap of chasing the tail. You have to be on point 7 days a week. You have to really want to do this and drop the body fat that's required. This is what you need to do. And that's the reality of it. People just can't say no to these events that come up every weekend. They can't say no to a night out. They can't say no to going to a restaurant. You don't have to do that all the time. But if you're going out every weekend, you're going to struggle to get as lean as you need to. That's where I'm going with this, right? 5, you're not eating the right foods. So there's no magic food for fat loss, of course. But what we want to base the majority of our diet around high volume, low calorie foods. That's going to keep us full for longer. Because if we eat a lot of calorie dense, low volume food, or things that are very calorie dense and we can eat easily, things like dates and things that have got a lot of fat in them, you're going to blow through your calories very very fast. We don't want that. So then what happens is someone's food choices is off, and then they're that hungry, then the calorie deficit becomes off because they start eating more than they need. Whereas if you're smart with your food choices and your meal stuff, your meal time and what you're eating in each meal, you can sort of push off the hunger signal a touch. So you want more higher volume, lower calorie foods. I've been over this plenty of times in the past. Your high protein stuff, low fats, things like your Greek yogurt. In terms of fruits, you want things like strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, salads, cucumbers, zucchinis, all of this stuff. Bringing a lot of that into the bulk of your diet, really bulk out your plate, right? And the other thing with that is liquid calories. People eat and have too many liquid calories. Liquid calories are going to digest pretty fast because, again, they're already partially broken down and digested when you take them on. So then the satiety signaling from having a lot of liquid calories in a deficit, your satiety signaling is going to drop off completely. Whereas if you have a big bowl of 300 grams of, let's say, boiled potatoes and chicken breast and salad, what's going to keep you full of that or a protein shake? See where I'm going with this? So too many liquid calories, just eating the wrong foods, it then makes people just overeat and then it puts the calorie deficit off, right? That's another big one. And then the final one is again, I see this all the time with clients. People are not patient enough. The scale hasn't dropped in 3 or 4 days and people start to panic. You can't do that, right? And this is, I say this weekly to a lot of clients, and once they understand it and the penny drops, we're good to go then, they understand it. We're always looking at an average over 7 to 14 days. I will never make any adjustments after if scale weight has been the same for 3 or 4 days. Even after a week, if your body weight has stayed static after a week, I don't panic. I give it to 14 days, and then you look at the average, because body weight will fluctuate up and down. It's always going to happen. You have to take your average over a 7 to 14 day period. And if it's still stuck, if it's still not moving, okay, we're going to have to make some tweaks. But for the most part, 9 times out of 10, people are just not patient enough. They're expecting the scale to drop every 3 or 4 days. And at a certain point, it just doesn't happen. So you have to be patient, right? The final point I haven't even got on here, right? I think with dieting, and this is very, very important, when you're trying to get to a certain level of leanness, there's only so long that you can do all these hacks, these tips and tricks. You're going to be hungry. You're going to feel tired. You can't put off the suffering. At some point, you are going to suffer towards the end of a diet. It's part of it. Now, what I say to a lot of people is, look, you're in a position where you're hungry. You're a little bit tired. Just embrace the suffering. The more you try to fight it, the worse it is. You just lean into it, especially towards the end of a diet, when someone is really getting close to this 10% range, and they maybe want to dip a little bit below into 7-8% range. When you're really starting to get really, really lean, there's no avoiding the suffering. And the faster you realise that, and you accept it for what it is, and you face it head on, and you attack it, and you go, okay, this is my choice. I am choosing to do this. Let's get it. Let's get stuck in. Let's not try and avoid it. Let's not complain. You just lean into the suffering and become one with the suffering, especially towards the end of a diet. That is one of the biggest tips that I could give you. There's only so many hacks that are going to work for so long. Once you're starting to get to a certain level of leanness, just embrace it, and you're going to have a much better time. It's not forever, right? So hopefully that helps you out. Any comments you all have, drop them down below. If anybody is interested in coaching and working with me one-to-one closely, again, book a call in the link below. It's on my website, and we can have a little chat. But other than that, thanks for all the support, everyone, and I will speak to you soon.